Hello, everyone. We will be beginning the services in about 5 or so minutes, so please get comfortable. If you need to use the bathroom, now's a good time. And if there's anyone not here that we need to wait for, please let me know so we don't start before they're here.
Mom, what are you paying? No. He was at my house. Okay. But I need to make sure that it's all situated with the people. It's a secret here. I couldn't believe that. And my grandmother I have all of those
Once again, in case you missed it, roughly 5 minutes until we will begin. If you would like to use the bathroom, get a drink, or if there's anyone you need to wait for, please let me know. Otherwise, we will be starting soon.
That's the one. Yeah, they were closing, they were locked, and the deals. They already closed, so we're about to go.
All right, we will be starting momentarily. Everyone, please wrap up those conversations, find a seat, and we will begin momentarily.
Share this with you.
Okay, hello everyone. I am Michael McWhorter. Many know me as Bagger. I was Tom's oldest grandchild, only grandson, and I will be your MC for tonight. Okay, so the first person we will have speaking is Tom's wife, Ellen.
Harry's I don't know my son.
Just real quick, if you have not already, please silence your cell phones, put them on airplane mode ideally, because we do have a broadcast going. We do not want to use up all the internet, keep that going as high as possible. And plus, we just don't want to interrupt anyone speaking.
I wrote a eulogy, and it sits on my bed, I think, but anyway, I don't have it here, but I love Tom. And I can prove it, because he was really a pain in the ass. But we would have been married for 47 years on June 26th. And here I am. A little bit later, you're going to hear from all my kids, and they're going to talk about their dad and how smart he was. And I'm just gonna talk about his body, but I'm not gonna go there. I promise. Tom didn't play sports in high school. He was in the poetry club. But when he went to Dartmouth, for some reason, he signed up for crew. And I don't know what that means, but anyway. Okay. When I met him, he said, I said, everybody asks Tom when you meet him, did you play football? And he said, no. He was on the crew. And he was in the heavyweight eights boat. And Tom really liked to eat. And he said that they told him that he wasn't allowed to weigh more than 185 pounds. So he just put his scientific mind to, and he ate a box of X-Lax every night before his weigh-in. And, but he said it was a really sick sport. Anyway, after graduation, he lived in Pittsburgh and in Richmond, and he discovered rugby, and that was his sport. And he loved rugby, and we spent a lot of time at rugby games, let me put it that way. And this is the part where I wish I'd had the eulogy that I wrote, because I'm kind of getting stuck here. But anyway, he played rugby as long as he possibly could. And in rugby, they have like kids rugby, and they have women's rugby, and they have the regular rugby, and they also have over 40s. But over 40, it was just too much. So then he looked around for another sport, or something that he could do, and Allentown got to be kind of like a cycling thing, because they built a velodrome here in the Lehigh Valley, and he decided that he would take up biking, and he looked into it first, and he studied it, and he looked at bikes, and finally he went out and bought a mountain bike, which costs about as much as a Volkswagen. And he would go on like 10, 15, 20-mile rides with, if he had somebody to ride with, he was gone all day. And one time he came home and he said, I was going down the trail, I ran over a raccoon. And I was like, is this a raccoon okay? But yeah, it was. But he had to get a bike helmet, but it didn't stop him. But that was kind of, when he couldn't ride his bike anymore, he couldn't, it was just cruel. I mean, that was just it. But, I wouldn't have met Tom without rugby, because I was working at PennDOT, and my boss had started playing rugby that year. And he said, we're having a party at our apartment tonight, and why don't you come? And I went, and the guy I worked for was really annoying. And he found out that I'm ticklish, and I hate to be tickled. I mean, I just hate it. And he started tickling me at this party, and that was before, Me Too or whatever, I don't know. But anyway, he started tickling me, and Tom was sitting on a bar stool, and I just went over and I said, I need to sit on your lap. And he was the biggest guy there, so it worked out. And the next day, there was a rugby game, and Patty Merriman and I went to the game, and we were sitting on a blanket next to the field, and I heard this, hi, and I looked up, and and I can still remember his legs were like oak trees, from rowing. He had the most muscular legs that you have ever seen. And that's such a clear memory all these years later, was the legs, the front legs. And that's all the only body parts I'm going to mention here. Anyway, I don't know what I'm going to do about him. Even when he was in the nursing home, he'd call me like 3 times a day. He'd say, I need my computer. I can't find my shoes. I don't have any pants. And I'd say, ask the nurse, and he'd say, they don't do anything. So they all hated him. He said, they all hate me. And it was just, knowing he's not going to call me anymore. He's not coming home. That was, I've been grieving for like 2 years, because that's the way this disease goes. And so I'm in better shape than I would have been if this was a sudden thing. But let's get some of his kids up here to tell you how smart he was and kind and a good dad. And
those are great stories. I certainly enjoyed it. So now we will have the 3 children. As she said, first we will have the eldest daughter, Clary.
So it hasn't been easy coming up with the right thing to say today, mostly because there's so much that could be said about my father. He lived a very full and interesting life, and there are endless stories that could be told. And I'm sure you're going to hear a lot of those stories today. But in the end, I decided to talk about him as a father, because to me, that's what he was above all else. Daddy was the tallest person that I ever knew. Wherever he was, I couldn't miss him. When he came home from work every day, we would all scream, "Daddy!" And we'd run and greet him at the door, where he would scoop us all up with complete ease. At bedtime, we'd all climb into his lap, and he'd tell us bedtime stories that he made up as he went, always involving 3 children named Krissa, Patrick, and Kate. I still remember one of those stories where there was a nasty witch that was trying to steal us all away, and we defeated her with a vacuum cleaner, crying, "Goodbye, witchy poo," as we sucked her up in the vacuum. Daddy was an incredibly intelligent man, and he loved to share his wealth of knowledge with his children. When I was little, I asked him what his job was, and he would simply say, "I'm a genius." Not only was he indeed a genius, but he was also very deep, poetic, and soulful. When he was driving us around, he almost always played Leonard Cohen, and he would periodically pause the music and explain the lyrics to us, or at least how he interpreted them himself. He did this so often that by the age of 8 or 9, I had memorized all of his lyrics, and dozens of songs were frequently stuck in my head. And Daddy was always there for his children. I never had any doubt that he loved me unconditionally, and that love was what helped me get through my childhood. It's no secret that I was a weird kid, and unfortunately, weird kids don't have an easy time when it comes to dealing with peers in school. I was bullied mercilessly in elementary school and into middle school. But when things got really bad, I always felt comfort in singing Leonard Cohen songs to myself because they made me feel closer to Daddy, and Daddy always made me feel safe. Daddy's lifelong love for Leonard Cohen is why you'll hear many references to him today, as well as hearing some of his songs. So I chose today to sing Night Comes On in honor of my father, and because of how close it makes me feel to him. The song was written from a son to his mother, so I had to adapt the lyrics a little bit, but I like to think that Leonard Cohen wouldn't mind, and I like to think that he and Daddy are up there somewhere drinking together right now and listening, and maybe they'll even sing along. I went down to the place where I knew he lay waiting, under the marble and the snow. I said, Daddy, I'm frightened of the thunder and the lightning. I'll never come through this alone. He said, I'll be with you, my arms wrapped around you, my hand on your head when you go. And the night came on. It was very calm. I wanted the night to go on, but he said, go back to the world. We were locked in the kitchen. I took to religion and wondered how long he would stay. I needed so much to have nothing to touch. I've always been greedy that way. But my beautiful daughter climbed out of the water, said, Mommy, you promised to play. And she leads me down the great surprise. It's Mommy, don't peek, Mommy, cover your eyes. And she hides in the world. Now I look for him always. I'm lost in his calling. I'm tied to the threads of some prayer, saying, when will he summon me? When will he come to me? What must I do to prepare? When he bends to my longing, like a willow, like a fountain, he dents in the luminous air. And the night comes on, it's very calm. I lie in his arms and he says, when I'm gone, I'll be yours for a song. Now the crickets are singing, the vesper bells ringing, the cat's curled asleep in his chair. I'll go down to the bar, I can make it that far, and I'll see if my friends are still there. Listen, here's to the few who forgive what you do, and the fewer who don't even care. And the night comes on, it's very calm. I want to cross over, I want to go home, but he says, go back to the world.
I very much enjoyed that song. Next, we will have the middle child, Patrick.
Howdy. Okay, I just scribbled down some notes. I wasn't really ready for this. I wasn't sure if I was going to do this because, as mentioned, there was a lot to say about the guy. I tried to sum it up. And anyway, as a kid, it was like having my own pet giant. He was always willing to let me ride on his shoulders or throw us and the cousins in the pool. I try to do the same with my child, even though she's the giant in this situation. I guess it skips a generation. When I was going through an awkward phase as a young lad, I had no friends, and he would play Super Nintendo games with me, even though he sucked. And he still tried just to have a way to spend time with me. He always made sure that he knew he loved you, even to the point of being obnoxious. He wasn't afraid to be obnoxious when he was truly concerned with an issue. CDG Technologies was like a child to him, and I don't begrudge him that at all. I will, however, begrudge him for all those times when he would mix my name up with his dogs. I have to take Patrick to the vet. He would always make sure that as a child I knew I was gifted, and he would always, often in the same breath, remind me that his IQ was 5 points higher. He was a big guy and he cast a long shadow. Whatever gifts I have, I wasn't able to harness them for profit like he did, but he'll always have that one up on me. On the rugby field, he looked like a great behemoth, towing up the rear, towering over the other players. He let people make their own choices as much as possible. He let my mom be in charge. He once told me that he never had any desire to control people. In anthropology, they talk about different levels of tribal society, each having its own respective style of chief depending on the tribe's size. At a certain level, the chief of the village is called the big man. His job would be to amass wealth, but not for his own sake, rather to help his tribe in any way that he could. He would mediate disputes between his people and live to see his people happy and well functioning. Yeah, often associated that with my father. Now a Leonard Cohen quote, even though it all went wrong, I'll stand before the Lord of song with nothing on my tongue but hallelujah. You know, not all of his endeavors panned out. Even though he was wrongfully fired from CDG, he continued to work there as a consultant as long as he could. He told, like I said, CDG is like a child to me. He never gave up on CDG because he would never give up on any of his children. He retained his vitality to the very end. He watched Naked and Afraid with enthusiasm. I'll close this up with a poem he wrote in college. They tell me the sky is full of clouds and that the heavens cry. My world is adrift in a sea of despair. But what do I care? I'm dry.
He was quite a poet. So we will now have the youngest of the three children, and my mother, Kate.
Hi. I was the last person my dad saw before he passed. It was an exceptionally good visit. He was much more relaxed than usual. I brought him a Rita's gelati, which any of you out-of-towners should try a Rita's. They're amazing. And a bag of chocolates. He complained about not feeling as good as usual. I think he used the word baseline, because that was my dad. But he couldn't really articulate how or why. I told him all about my son Dagger, his grandchild, and how great he was doing in school. I told him about my art studio and how happy it was for me to have a place to be creative and work on projects and ideas. I told him that Mommy had been really trying hard to come visit him that week, but she hadn't been feeling well, and I would bring her as soon as she was able. I set up his Audible account again with the book Dragons of Eden by Carl Sagan. He loved that book. He listened to it multiple times the year before he passed. It's ready for it to play for him at bedtime. I told him I loved him. I hugged him. I told him I'd be back on Monday. That was on Friday. He passed away that Monday morning as I was getting ready to head out and see him. Looking back, in hindsight, I think that maybe he was ready to go. He seemed happy and content when I left, but he was tired. Leonard Cohen was obviously a huge influence in my dad's life. He was a fan from the first album to the last he heard, and as you heard earlier, he would listen to him on repeat in the car when he was driving his kids around. We were all influenced early on by his gift of language and that deep baritone. I remember when I was a little girl, alone in the car with my dad, we were listening to the song Bird on a Wire, and I asked him, how is a bird on a wire the same as a drunk in a midnight choir? And my dad, without hesitation, explained that a bird on a wire can only sit in two different ways. And a drunk in a choir has to follow the music, but he can still sing a little off. But they're both trying to be free within the limitations of their situation. And I understood that. And it was probably the moment that I learned to search for deeper meaning in things. Leonard Cohen was excellent at creating symbolic imagery in his lyrics and weaving together poetry and songs about the deepest and most complex things in life: spirituality, love, and loss. A common theme in his songs was dance. Popular songs like Take This Waltz, Closing Time, and Dance Me to the End of Love compared life to a dance that we're all compelled to get through, despite the hardships, heartaches, and pain, because of the music, which is the pleasure, beauty, passion, and love. But we're all just dancing to the end, and in the end, the dance consumes you. But it was worth it. Like my dad used to drive me around playing Leonard Cohen, it became my job in the past few years of his life to do the same for him. I know he really enjoyed that, and I regret not picking him up for spontaneous joyrides during his final months at the Cedarburg Nursing Home. But that's the thing about loss. It doesn't matter how much time you have to prepare for it. There will always be things left unsaid, left undone, questions unasked. And I don't want to remember my dad the way he was over the last few years. His 75 years on this earth were so much more than that. He danced through all the beauty, pleasure, pain. He saw it through to the end. Every person in this room danced with him in a Leonard Cohen sort of way. Leonard Cohen's final album was titled Thanks for the Dance. It was the album he was working on up until he passed away in 2016. I was listening to Leonard Cohen on repeat the past 2 weeks, and one night I had a burst of creative energy at my studio, and I was working on some artwork at the table where I had my father's picture set up, looking at me and smiling. His picture fell over suddenly. Shortly after, the titular track of the album, Thanks for the Dance, started playing. I heard it in a completely new way because my dad taught me to look deeper. Try to sing, but we'll see how that goes. Thanks for the dance. I'm sorry you're tired. The evening has hardly begun. Thanks for the dance. Try to look inspired. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. There's a rose in your hair. Your shoulders are bare. You've been wearing this costume forever. So turn up the music, pour out the wine. Stop at the surface. The surface is fine. We don't need to go any deeper. Thanks for the dance. I hear that they're married. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Thanks for the dance and the baby you carried. It was almost a daughter or a son. And there's nothing to do but to wonder if you are as hopeless as me and as decent. We're joined in the spirit, joined at the hip, joined in panic, wondering if we've come to some sort of agreement. La, la, la. I did forget the lyrics. It's okay, I didn't. The last 2 times I publicly spoke in front of people, I had a panic attack, so this is like awesome. La, 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 la. It was fine, it was fast. We were first, we were last. In line at the temple of pleasure. But the green was so green, and the blue was so blue. I was so I, and you were so you. The crisis was light as a feather. Thanks for the dance. It was hell, it was swell, it was fun. Thanks for all the dances. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1.
One more quick reminder, please make sure your cell phones are silenced. If you are much like Tom, maybe you can't figure it out, please request help from someone else. He's never good with his phone. I've certainly enjoyed the songs that we've heard, and now it is time once again for another song with all 3 of the children. They will be singing Dance Me to the End of Love by Leonard Cohen.
Little child, testing. Okay. Ready? Dance me to your beauty with a burning violin. Dance me through the panic till I'm gathered safely in. Lift me like an olive branch and be my homeward dove. Dance me to the end of love. Dance me to the end of love. Let me see your beauty when the witnesses are gone. Let me feel you moving like they do in Babylon. Show me slowly what I only know the limits of. Dance me to the end of love. Dance me to the end of love. Dance me to the wedding now, dance me on and on. Dance me very tenderly and dance me very long. We're both of us beneath our love, we're both of us alone. Dance me to the end of love. Dance me to the end of love. Dance me to the children who are asking to be born. Dance me through the curtains that our kisses have outworn. Raise a tent of shelter now, though every thread is torn. Dance me to the end of love. Dance me to your beauty with a blurring violin. Dance me through the panic till I'm gathered safely in. Touch me with your naked hand, or touch me with your glove. Dance me to the end of love. Dance me to the end of love. Dance me to the end of love.
I just want to say, Kate and I had visited Daddy at the nursing home a few months before he passed, and we had talked to him about, singing a song for him, and he actually had requested this song, so
We already knew it had to be Leonard.
it had.
At first he was just like, it doesn't matter, I'll be dead.
He did say that. And we all do the voice when we talk in my father, like when we talk about him.
How about and go get the recycled bin?
Harper, Clary. You'll hear it tonight.
Byron, could you get me some water? Heard that one a lot. Okay. That was certainly an enjoyable song. I certainly enjoyed it from backstage where no one can see me. Unless you're sitting over there and you can see me. Feels special. So now, now that the main family that wanted to speak has spoken, I will be opening up the floor to anyone else in the audience who may want to speak about him. Ooh, I want to speak about him. Yes, you and the very tall, stunningly good-looking gentleman, please, come up to the stage. Okay, so, you know me, I introduced myself at the start. He was a cool guy, what can I say? I mean, like, you all know how tall he was, how amazingly, huge he was. I got all of that genetics. I am 6'1" at 15, I'm still growing. I'm thankful to him for that. Being tall is a lot of fun. And I gather from all the stories I hear, we are relatively similar in a lot of ways. We both think logically, similar interests, similar builds, and just overall, I wish I had known him when he was younger in his prime. I feel like we would have gotten along pretty well. Although when I was very little, we did do a lot of fun things together. One of the big things I remember doing with him, I would sit on his lap at the computer and go into MS Paint or whatever other bad painting software was default installed onto his computer, and we'd mess around with the shapes tool, drawing a bunch of shapes, distorting all the aspect ratios and everything, changing the colors. And then one day, we figured out how to put pictures onto the documents, and that changed everything. The one I remember most was a picture of me with a Cars 2 statue. I don't know where the picture was taken, I just know that I liked Cars back in the day, the movie from Pixar. And then as I got older, in around 6th grade, when he was still trying to work, I ended up being tasked with helping him with his work. I would read to him from his crazy science books that I had no idea what they were saying, and then he'd tell me to type crazy things. I had no idea what he was saying on the computer, and I did that for a couple of times, and then soon after that, he finally retired, well earned. And then one other memory I have of him, or probably my personal favorite, was when over the summer, one summer, I was staying at my grandparents' house because my mother had to work. So 5 days a week, I was at their house. And usually, my grandmother would do the shopping, and I would usually tag along. But one time, he went shopping, and I tagged along. And instead of going around doing the thing, and then I would ask for something and maybe get it, he just said, "Oh, there's little kid carts over there. Want to meet up at the checkout?" I was about 9 years old. So I went out and I got so much candy, and he bought all of it. It was a lot of fun. surprisingly, I was, surprisingly and luckily actually, I didn't get sick. I did not get myself sick off that candy. I was at that young age where you were just immune to bad eating habits. So I took full advantage of that, and it was a lot of fun. Maybe I'm misremembering, but I'm pretty sure on the drive back, I thanked him for all the candy he let me buy, and he just said, "Don't tell Grandma." I guess you know now, but I don't think I ever did tell you. Yeah. So that was certainly a lot of fun. And now I will be actually passing the mic to anyone else who wants to talk. The thing I remember getting most was the Twizzlers. I'm pretty sure I got a huge bag of Twizzlers.
Good afternoon. My name is Joe Kemper, and I had the honor and privilege of playing rugby for the Hooligans with Tom McWhorter. And just so you know, one of his other favorite songs, aside from Leonard Cohen, he really enjoyed the tune, "They're moving father's grave to build a sewer." That was sung at many rugby parties. Two particular, God, the rugby stories could go on and on. The two particular ones come to mind. One of which is, as big as Tom was, he wore low-cut rugby shoes. And he didn't wear socks either. And we had an English referee for one of our home games. His name was Peter Heaton. And it really bothered Peter that Tom was not wearing socks. And he said, "McWhorter, the next time I'm up here to do one of your games, you better have socks on." So a couple of weeks go by, and lo and behold, Peter Heaton is assigned to referee one of our home games. And somebody mentioned that to Tom. So the day of the game, Tom showed up at the field, and he had painted his legs to match the color of our socks. And Peter was just sort of dumbfounded. Another story, it was a particular game that we played at our home pitch. And I don't recall who the opponent was, but the person who was playing opposite me, who was their tight head prop, fancied himself a cheap shot artist and a late hit artist and, going around just not playing a very gentlemanly game. So at one point, the play broke down and there was about to be a scrum. And Tom packed down right behind me. And he said, "Joe, when you pack down, step out a little bit more to your left and give me a little bit more space." Because his head was right up here. And when the ball came in, he lowered his head and hit that guy in his forehead. And when the scrum broke up and the ball was out, this fella just sort of shriveled down to the field and he was done for the day. But Tom was a great guy.
I very much enjoyed that first story, especially with the socks. Makes me think of how he did love baiting people into arguments, so I hear. And also, so I hear, many called him the master baiter, because he was just so good at baiting people. Once again, would anyone else like to say a few words?
I'm not sure I can top that story.
You can try your best. I'm sure it'll be just good.
So I just had a couple of brief stories that I wanted to share on his nephew, Sean. I shared with Alan a couple of weeks ago, and she thought it'd be nice to talk about that. One is to speak to his wit. We go on Virginia fishing trips every year to visit his father down in Monterey, and we go for a week to fish ponds, lakes, whatever. One time I went on a hot streak and I caught like 20 black crappie fish. That's actually a fish, black crappie. And Coach Tom quickly retorted, and I completely missed because I was 8 years old. Yes, Sean, you caught a bunch of crappie fish. To speak to his, some of you know his libertarian streak, we would often, when we go down to the beach over the summer to Fenwick Island, we go out crabbing. And I never in my life witnessed a man get fined twice in 15 minutes for illegally baiting with Kentucky Fried Chicken. I said, what are you going to do about those two $10 fines, Uncle Tom? He goes, I don't care, I have 150 crabs. But the best story, and it is a story my father liked to tell about him, is, as we all know from knowing Tom, he's very scholarly, a legit Ivy Leaguer, also went to Carnegie Mellon and Lehigh. But the story that my dad liked to tell was, at the time we were playing with the hooligans, was at some point, maybe due to a headbutt or two, a fight broke out during one of their matches. There were several fights going on. And of course, my father claimed he was just trying to break one up until the fight ended pretty much after Uncle Tom got hit in the family jewels. To which he retorted, again, the Ivy Leaguer, Carnegie Mellon Lehigh, in his Alabama tone, I'm gonna get you! Proves you can take the boy out of Alabama, but you can't take the Alabama out of Alabama.
What a guy, really. Lots of funny stories. Hopefully some more.
Well, I know we're all starving, so I'm not going to keep you up here very long, but this is making me think about how much we loved having Tom in our family. And all of the, the southern side, but don't forget the northerners up here, and he became such a member of our family. And we forgave him for almost drowning Barbara and I in the Atlantic Ocean. We enjoyed our visits at the shore. We'd take a week, sometimes 2 weeks. And Tom had an aluminum, I think it was a bass boat. And we would go out on the bay side, and we would have the best time. And then one day he said, oh, I wonder, he's curious. I wonder what's over there. I wonder what's over there. Well, it was the ocean, Tom. We were out there, we were on a boat. The two sisters looked at each other like, is he gonna drown us? Was this part of the trick? Was something going on here? And then Tom was very unconcerned, which made us even more concerned. But he did get us back safely. I don't think we ever told Ellen that he almost lost both of the sisters out there. I don't. And the other story that I think about is when they were very first married and went to a party and got dressed up for Halloween. And because of Tom's height, he was the Jolly Green Giant. And he did it to the T. The empty niblets can was filled with bourbon. What else would you fill it with? And he had the leaves and he had the shorts. And he dyed his entire body green. Now, he was curious, but maybe he didn't really think that too far through, because he did have to show up to Air Products in a suit and tie with a slightly green tinge over his entire body, because it did not apparently wash right off. Again, we could tell stories about Tom for a very long time, but my mother loved him. He was a part of our family. We loved him. He was really a special person. So thanks for sharing him with us all these years.
That is a Halloween costume I personally would love to see. Ooh, you gotta find that picture. I need it. While I was sitting back there, I remembered another two actually fun stories, or not stories, but things about him, which is, as many of you know, he was huge, and then back when the three Stooges were little, they'd sit in his lap, he'd tell them stories, and they'd just have a jolly old time. He did love being a chair for many small specimens. And when he eventually was unable to handle 3 grown adults in his lap, he got dogs, many dogs and cats. I remember while I was living there, and weasels too. He did love his weasels. When I was living with him, I remember I would always see like at least one animal, sometimes 2, just on his lap while he was in his chair watching Naked and Afraid, and it was great. They loved him. I'd see like my mother's pug Stevie there sometimes the big old cat Cowboy, sometimes even Harry would hang out with him. So he did love being a chair. And I also remember a while back when I was a wee little lad, he wanted me to get into sports, like he never was able to. Eventually, I was opposed for a while because I tried it when I was like in 1st grade and I didn't like it. And then eventually, I started playing soccer in 8th grade, and he was so happy about that. He asked me about how things went with that a lot. I lied to him and said that our team was good and won games. And then eventually, I was also thinking that when I was around 11 or so, when he was still wanting me to play sports, I was thinking, what if I started playing chess just to like kind of circumvent it a little bit? And here we are now, and I, as some of you know, I play a lot of chess. I wish I could have played him in chess. That would have been a fun match. But he was good. Anyway, would anyone else like to speak? Willow. We will have the second grandchild.
Hi. Oh, that's loud. I didn't really prepare a speech, so I'm kind of just I'm winging it. So, I didn't really know him very well. I would call him Daddy Mac. And I remember my mom would always tell me, I would always ask, when can I call him Big Tom? Because everybody would call him Big Tom. And my mom would always say, when you're older, you can call him Big Tom like everybody else. So I waited so long, and I was looking forward to the day that I could finally call him Big Tom. Unfortunately, I never got to do that because eventually I just forgot. So, yeah. So, yeah, I do remember some computer memories with him, like of us on the computer together. I remember sitting on his lap while we would play Plants vs. Zombies together, and he would tell me all the different strategies. And, I would sit on his lap at the TV, and he'd show me some of his favorite shows to watch when I was really little. So I just wish I could have known him better, but after everybody has talked about him, I feel like I've known him my whole life. And yeah, I don't know what else to say, but thank you. Goodbye.
Well, I mean, technically speaking, you have known him your whole life.
Yeah. I mean, his whole life.
Yeah, that reminded me too of when I would also play computer games, not just MS Paint with him on the computer. And not to rub it in or anything, but I helped him figure out some of those Plants vs. Zombies strategies. So, anyway, I saw a few other hands raised up at the same time as Willow. Would any of you like to raise your hand again?
This is another rugby story. I just can't forget seeing Tom McWhorter crawl out of, I believe, a Volkswagen Golf. This gigantic man with 2 St. Bernards. And he would chain the St. Bernards around his waist, wearing overalls. And then we'd go and they'd play the game, whatever. At the end of the game, he'd chain the St. Bernards around his waist again and drink a gallon of sherry. And you just had to be very careful. You were not standing near him if suddenly he went over, because it could be very dangerous. And I can hear his voice right now.
Only he could chain a bunch of big dogs to his waist and not just get, whoa.
I'm like Willow now, I was not planning on saying anything, but I'm Tom's brother, Calvin. And several people have made comments about him not being an athlete or not playing football. But when I was little, when I was 6, he was, I guess, 8, and we'd play YMCA football, and he would make the team because he was big and good, and I would make the team because I was his little brother, and they were afraid if that means that he'd leave too. So that's how I got started playing football. I played for 15 years, but when he was little, when he was in the Pee Wee leagues, which were 11 and 12 years old, his head was so large he couldn't wear the normal helmet that the rest of the kids wore. So my parents had to go downtown to the sporting goods store and buy him a high school football helmet, which he put on, wore proudly. And back during the day, they used to run a drill called head-on tackle. And basically, two players would lay on their backs about 10 yards apart. When the whistle blew, they'd jump up, grab the ball, and just go head to head and see who could tackle the other one. And Tom, with his high school football helmet, would go up against these little kids with the ones they call it, like Walmart or whatever the comparable store was at that time. There were little thin plastic helmets. And I remember one day he did head on head 3 times and broke three helmets down the middle. And those little boys went home, and I don't know that they ever came back. But the coach was afraid that all the rest of the team would quit. But anyway, Tom stayed and played, and he enjoyed it and had a good time and played. I sent him a picture not too long ago where he one season played on a city championship football team, and he played obviously tackle or guard or one of the positions reserved for bigger kids. But he was a good big brother. He didn't flaunt it, but Molly, his sister, and I knew that he was always there, and he was a caring person and would do anything for you, whether you were related or not. He was a good man, and I know we'll miss him, but I know he's in a better place now and doing well. Thank you.
I gotta say, back when I was playing soccer, I was on defense. If I had to defend against him, I'd probably quit too. Would anyone else like to speak? I'm not seeing any hands. Last call. All right, well, and if that's the case, I think it is time for some awesome Scottish bagpipe music and some scrumptious food. I'm starving. You all better be too, or else it's all mine. Pleasure being your MC tonight.